have all kinds of songs that had questions, but then I also realized that Friday, 2 days ago, was National Kids Songs Day. So we have a selection of kids songs that ask all of our questions today.
Trying a new microphone arrangement today.
Yep.
Oh, good.
I can hear, I forgot my hearing aids.
And you can hear.
And I can hear.
Good.
So, that was even better. That's even better. There's a reason I forgot it.
And yes,
Welcome to the Unitarian Church in Fall River, where we think religious questions are important, but we want to work out our own answers, and where we gather to share ideas and support one another. We gather this hour as people of faith, having sorrows and joys and needs and gifts. We like this beacon of hope as a sign of our quest for truth and meaning, and in celebration of the life we share together. Could we join, please, in our opening hymn number 301, Touch the Earth, Reach the Sky. please join in our affirmation. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve human need, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with the divine. Thus do we covenant with each other and with God. Please be seated. I like the cartoon on the cover. Why am I here? And some would consider that not a good question. I think it's a good question because I have an answer that I like. This is from Annie Dillard, who wrote Pilgrim at Tinker Creek. She's a nature writer and a mystic, and she explained why we're here. She said, we are here to abet creation. We are here to feel the wind on our faces and to smell the grass and look at the sunsets and so on. We are here to notice each other's beautiful face and complex nature so that creation doesn't have to play to an empty house. In other words, we are part of how the universe is conscious of itself. We are universe's organs of self-consciousness, of awareness. We are how the universe reflects on itself. I kind of like that. But that may be not your answer, but announcements. We signed the lease with Temple Bethel Tuesday afternoon. They are the ones who are painting the rooms over here. They are the ones who have this great big box, which is going to go right here behind me eventually. They are the ones that are kind of helping us to catch up on a lot of overdue maintenance and cleaning and so on in the building. So next Sunday is the second Sunday of the month, so that's Potluck Sunday. I know we just had one just a couple of weeks ago, but that's because for various construction regions, we had to postpone the normal Sunday for September. But we'll have a potluck next Sunday. And Tracy made us aware of an organization called Thrive for Humanity that serves the homeless. And on their Facebook page, they have a list of things that they need. And I put this list in the order of service last week, but if you weren't here last week, I have a few extras on the table in the back. And so it's not that we can't collect the usual things we collect for the homeless, but here's an organization telling us exactly what they need. And so I think it would be good if we focused on that. Are there other announcements?
Thank you, Richard, for joining us in worship this morning. We have your reading for next week. I will leave it with you for Ken's service, your reading.
Lots of us are doing readings for Ken Reeves' service next week.
And give it everybody else this one. So Ken Reeves will be here. I think the title of the sermon.
Something about spiritual journeys.
Spiritual journeys. Thank you. Because she's already working on the music. See, that's how Thank you so much. And I will be away next, well, actually, I will be away next week. I'll be away next week. I'll be returning at 1 a.m. Sunday morning, so I won't be here. But I will miss you all, and I will be here. Thank you.
How's this microphone working?
And
Okay.
the announcement is, this month is Cancer Month. Breast Cancer Awareness Month. They're doing a lot of donations throughout and about. I guess the numbers have gone up on cancer, and the NHL has just started their campaign, and the NBA is starting up in a week, and they're going to do the same thing to help support anyone who's suffering with cancer. They're kind of promotional.
If there's anybody who has an interest in stamps and collections, I have a big box full of albums, first day covers. I don't know, I don't know anybody to bring them to. And someone has an interest in those, if anyone.
So stamp collectors.
I know.
Stamp collectors are what you're looking for, right? But someone said you might be able to sell them to a dealer. They might be worth something.
Yeah, you don't want to
Does
go.
anybody know a dealer? Or, I guess,
They take too much. We can talk.
you know?
For the meditation today, I want to read Bill Gardner's favorite poem. Some of you may remember Bill Gardner. He was a UU minister. He served this church as an interim minister after Bruno Visco and before Charlie Flack. And I got to know him because I met him at ministers' meetings, but we kind of connected because I was serving at the time the UU church in Weymouth, and that had been the very first church he had served. When he was a brand new minister, he had served it almost 60 years earlier. He had served it beginning in 1938, and I was serving it in the mid-90s. And we connected, we got to know each other. He died in 2000 at 88 of prostate cancer, which is a disease that many, many men, old men have. But most old men don't die of prostate cancer because it grows so slowly. We die of something else. But he lived long enough to actually die of prostate cancer. It was unusual. Anyway, we connected. This is his favorite poem, and it's kind of macho, which surprises me because he was a really gentle soul. I thought, I saw him that way, but it's a kind of macho, John Wayne kind of poem, but it's his favorite poem. It's called Invictus. Out of the night that covers me, black as the pit from pole to pole, I thank whatever gods may be for my unconquerable soul. In the fell clutch of circumstance, I have not winced or cried aloud. Under the bludgeonings of chance, my head is bloody, but unbowed. Beyond this place of wrath and tears looms but the horror of the shade, and yet the menace of the years finds and shall find me unafraid. It matters not how strait the gate, how charged with punishments the scroll. I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul. Wow. Let us now be silent together to create an opportunity for prayer or meditation. Spirit of life, come unto me, sing in my heart all the stirrings of passion, blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life a shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me. If you were here when Bill Gardner was here, you may have heard this before. He calls this a parable, and it's called The Closet Society. And it's kind of, long for reading. It's single-spaced, 1 1/3 or so pages. But it's worth it, I think. I'll try to make the sermon correspondingly short so we get out of here on time. A group of people enter a large room. None of them had ever been in the room before. They sit around chatting. They look at the room's decorations and furnishings. After a while, one person gets up and walks slowly around the room, making a rather careful scrutiny of things. He comes to a closed door on one side of the room, puts his hand on the doorknob and tries to open it, but it is fastened. He looks at it, tries again to open it, and finally gives up and says to the group, "I wonder what's in this closet." Whereupon others who had not been paying attention became interested. Apparently, these people didn't have much to do. Some of them go over to the door and try to open it. Interest is generated, and they begin to speculate on the contents of the closet. One said, "Oh, there's probably brushes and mops and other cleaning supplies in the closet." Another said, "That may be where the wood for the fireplace is kept." And so they have a friendly discussion about the possible contents. And this goes on for some time. Then a newcomer walks in, and after greetings and introductions, he's told about their discussion, and they ask his opinion as to what's in the closet. He looks at the door, he tries unsuccessfully to open it, looks at it more closely, looks around the room, and finally asks, "How do you know it's a closet?" The group is suddenly very quiet, and one speaks up, "We've already decided it's a closet. What we're doing is speculating on the contents." "But," insists the newcomer, "how do you know it's a closet?" "It has to be a closet. Every room like this has a closet. Did you ever see a large room like this without a closet?" As they argue with the newcomer, they become more and more convinced of their position, and eventually the newcomer realizes he has touched off a sensitive argument and that he is not very popular for questioning the validity of the position, and he takes his leave. When he's gone, one member, who was speaking frequently enough to take on the role of leader, says, "Boy, that was an uncomfortable time. Why did he have to come in and spoil things when we were getting along so well?" The others agree. "Do any of you doubt this is a closet?" he says. No one says anything. "Then let's get organized to prevent anything like this happening again." And so they organized the Closet Society. The Closet Society. They elected a secretary and wrote into the minutes that everyone agreed that this is a closet, though we may have our own ideas about what's in the closet. And then someone moved that they put a sign on the door saying, "Closet." And this is done. And eventually other newcomers enter the group and enjoy the debate as to the contents of the closet, but occasionally some newcomer asks the forbidden question, "How do you know it's a closet?" But by this time, the organization is strong enough to have a police force which takes out such radicals and has them shot or burned at the stake. And as time goes on, the minutes of that first meeting become a constitution which cannot be amended, and the writings of the members concerning the contents of the closet are compiled in a sacred book. And there is not just the one little original sign on the closet door, but a larger one over it, and another saying, "This is a closet," and one at the entrance of the room saying, "This way to the closet." Members of the Closet Society take part in the annual 4th of July parade and have become solid citizens of the community. But once in a while, the peace of mind ordinarily enjoyed by Closet Society members is disrupted by some radical who asks, "How do you know it's a closet?" You know, there's a couple sentences more, but that's it. Bill was raised in a Universalist church in Canton, but this is back around 1920. He was born in 1912, so he was 8 years old, 1920. And the church in Canton was then a very Christian church. Universalists and Unitarians were still quite Christian back in the 1920s. So Bill was brought up a Christian, and he learned about the miracles of Jesus and believed in them and so on. And then after he had served the Weymouth Church, which was also very Christian back in 1938, he served a church in Meriden, Connecticut, where he ran into some physicians who were humanists. And they say sometimes humanist is a nice way of saying atheist. That's really not fair, I think. Humanists are people who have the attitude that, look, we've been talking about God for centuries. We have yet to come up with any useful information. So why don't we just focus on what's important? Human life and its challenges. So humanists don't so much deny God as ignore God. They don't ask metaphysical questions like, how did the universe begin? They just focus on human life and its challenges. Bill became a humanist, and when I knew him, he was a devoted humanist. There's a UU Humanist Association, and he wore their pin in his lapel. And I think the Closet Society is a parable that Bill created to talk about Christianity. The Closet Society to him is the Christian church that has a sacred book, consisting of the writings of the early Christians and often has a float Fourth of July parade and all of that kind of stuff that he alluded to, and which historically speaking has has stamped out heretics quite frequently. And these people who kept coming and saying, "How do you know it's a closet?" are like the heretics of Christian churches, who today they just have their reputations ruined and they're canceled, but they used to be burned at the stake and shot and so on. I think that's what Bill was getting at. I didn't ever ask him what he meant by this, but it seems to me that's what he's talking about. Humanists are sometimes called grumps and wet blankets. They kind of stifle people's free spirits in churches because they keep calling people back to reason and science and using logic and saying, well, what evidence is there for that? And asking questions like that. Bill wasn't like that, though. He was a caring person. And I think his message of watch out for tacit assumptions. But tacit means unspoken. A tacit assumption is an assumption that's made by someone who's speaking. The person may not even be aware of it, but it's an assumption the person has made that he hasn't spoken aloud, and therefore the person's hearers tend to accept the assumption also, uncritically. I wonder what's in this closet is a question that has a tacit assumption, and the tacit assumption is that it is a closet. That was what was unspoken. Questions like that, questions with tacit assumptions, are the wrong questions because they move a discussion off the subject. As I'm sure you've heard from preachers in the past, the word religion comes from the Latin word religio, which means to tie back or bind back. And you might say, to bind back what? I think religion is what binds back our attention to what's important. Your religion is something that keeps bringing your attention back to what's important, so you don't forget what's most important. And what's most important to Bill and humanists in general is not really what's behind the locked door, but the room, the universe, the people in it. The real question is not how did the universe get created, but what's going on in the universe and the living beings in the universe. And questions with tacit assumptions tend to divert our thoughts and conversations in bad directions. I think for Bill, the closet society was a defense of humanism, but excuse me, I think it has a broader application. It reminds us to uncover tacit assumptions in other questions. This is not a very profound example, but one question that's not a good question is, why did you vote for that jerk? It's not a good question. It's got a tacit assumption, namely that the person your friend voted for is a jerk, you know? And if you ask the question that way, there won't be a conversation between you and your friend. It may, in fact, put a real dent in your relationship with your friend. It's not a good question. A much better question is, help me to understand why you voted the way you did. You know, put it that way. And if this is your friend, I think your friend can see that you're sincerely interested in what the person's thoughts were. Now, help me to understand why you voted the way you did. And then that person says something, and you may still be very upset at what they say. And then you say, well, why do you say that? You know? And if you keep doing this for a while, I think what'll happen, what usually happens, is you get down to a level of basic values, you know, like safety for my children, or enough food, you know, for the population, or something like that. You get down to some kind of basic value that you share with this other person, even though this other person voted very differently. And then you still not be happy about the way the person voted. You may feel a person's reasoning is off in choosing to follow the political path that he or she did. But at least you will understand, and perhaps that person will understand more about your point of view. It's not a good question to say, why did you vote for that jerk? But here's some other questions I think are bad questions. This is a question, when I was serving the church in Weymouth, once in a while, I was asked to meet with people about to get married. And usually not as a pair, but one or the other. And I remember I was talking to one young woman who had become engaged. And what the first thing I always said was, when meeting engaged people, was to say, now you need to understand that you don't have to marry this person. Engagement is not the same as marriage. Engagement is supposed to be a kind of time of trial, you know? Don't feel like you have to get married. That was always my first, but I remember one woman in particular who said, is he the one? That's what was bothering her. Is he the one? And I said, well, there's a tacit assumption. I didn't put it this way, but I would say to you, there's a tacit assumption in that question. Is he the one? The assumption is that there is one person in the world that you're destined to have as your lifelong partner, you know? And if you think about it, that can't possibly be true, because you're only going to meet a few hundred people in your life, and there are 8 billion people in the world. So probably you're never going to meet the one, if there really is a one. And I say, so I said to this young woman, well, he could become the one if he meets some basic standards, like, is he a good person? Does he have a good character? Does he treat waiters and waitresses well, for example? Do you trust him? And does he trust you? Do you care about him? Does he care about you? Then he could be the one. And it's something that happens over time. We have this expression, make love, which usually means have sex, but there's a different make love. There's the love that's made in a long-term relationship, right? If you're with somebody for a long time, then that person becomes unique. There's nobody else in the world who knows you that well, for example, who knows all your bad qualities and knows them well and is with you anyway. You know, love is something that's made over time. I said, he could be the one. He could be the one. But don't ask yourself, is he the one? It's a bad question. Or another question, what's the meaning of life? I remember there was a physics teacher at Stonehill named Chet Ramo. You may have heard his name because he used to have a science column in the Globe. And he was, though he was a physics teacher, he was really a kind of poet. He'd write poetry. He wrote novels and short stories. And he was walking down the corridor talking to himself, as frequently happened, and he was saying, oh, what's the meaning of life? And I heard him outside my office. And then I heard the voice of Nancy Carrig. Nancy Carrig was a history teacher, one of the most apparently shy and retiring people you could ever meet. She was in her office, her door was open, she heard him, and she said from her office, and we could all hear her, that's not the right question. He had said, what's the meaning of life? She said, that's not the right question. And he went over to her office and said, well, what's the right question? And she said, that's the right question. I like that. What's the meaning of life is a question that, it's kind of like, is he the one? It's a question that assumes there is a meaning to life that we have to discover. But I would say that no, the meaning of your life is something that you make. We make the meaning of our lives, And I grew up in a religion in which there was a last judgment, where God was sitting there with a big ledger, judging me at the end of my life. I think there is a last judgment, but it's a judgment we make about our own lives. At the end of our lives, we make a judgment about our lives, whether we wasted our time here or not. And I just pray that when I'm on my deathbed, that the judgment I make about my life is that I did okay. There is a last judgment, but there's no foreordained meaning of life, I don't think. Or here's another bad question. Why me? Why me? Why is this happening to me? Why do I have this disease or this physical handicap? Why have I experienced this loss of a loved one or my job or my reputation? Why did I have this accident? Why me? And there's a tacit assumption that there's a reason. There's a reason. And that it's probably a punishment for something bad you did. And I personally question that assumption. When someone says, why me? I say, well, why not you? We know that lots of people are going to have their lives seriously messed up by all kinds of things, accidents, disease, unfair treatment, oppression. We know that. And what's so special about you that you can't be somebody that happens to? It's just bad luck. Why not you? And I also say, whether you're successful in life doesn't depend on the cards you're dealt. It depends on how you play them. That's how you measure success, how you play the cards you're dealt. If you're miserable, ask yourself, is there a tacit assumption behind what's bothering you? Remember the question, how do you know it's a closet? Right? How do you know it's a closet? And now for the support of this congregation and its work, the morning offering will be gratefully received and I hope freely given. We come to our time of sharing joys and concerns. The theory is that a joy shared is multiplied and a concern or sorrow shared is divided. It's math.
Can you hear me? Okay. So I have joy, but to start with joy, I will be here next week. Because I am driving up Little Rock, Arkansas, with a dear friend of mine that I met 10 years ago at a school up in Vermont. We went to a tiny house, design build class there. We became friends and we've been friends ever since. And him and his wife just moved to Hawaii. He actually built a tiny house. And he's know that I wanted to live for at least 10 years. And he called me up last spring and said, I want to teach you my tiny house. You just have to get it to Massachusetts. So I don't like to fly, and so a friend of mine and I are gonna drive to the walk, get it ready, and someone's gonna haul it here in Massachusetts. And so I'll be renting my parents' property and have my own space. So I'm very, very excited for that.
So I just really appreciate the talk that was very, very fascinating. When you first started, I started to think about David Ranke. The Course in Miracles, the entire course was really focused on going back all the way to the very earliest tacit assumptions we have about the world and the question. I mean, fundamentally, that's what the course was about. You know, in a similar manner, like is it a closet or not? The idea was, if you were brought up as an infant, all your life being told that that was a closet, someone comes along and says, you know, that might not be a closet. Your entire worldview gets shattered, right? I mean, it's really, you know, and if you try to explain your feelings to anybody else in the group, you're insane, right? I mean, so, you know, you're shuttled off and whatever. And so as I was thinking about that, I was thinking, yeah, I mean, just recently, a person claimed to be the reincarnation of Jesus in Russia. Well, he was sentenced to 12 years, hard labor, maximum security prison in Siberia. Right? That's what you get when you question, you know, people's worldview. It's not really tolerated whatsoever. We think about, well, we have to believe in science. But science itself is predicated on all kinds of assumptions that never get questioned. And so, like, we're going through this whole thing now in science, you know, with quantum physics and whatnot, with AI, with one of the things that opened my eyes in weapon system development, right, was I always thought of the certainty of logic being invaluable, you know, like being you can't question it. So like if there's a logical progression or something, you really can't question that logical progression. You start from A, you're going to end up at B. And so if you translate that into, you know, an electronic system like I was doing back then, you know, I thought it was a given. You know, if it starts at A, it's going to end up at B, period. Well, one of the things that I, you know, this is recent too, I came to the understanding is that that's not true. And it's not true, not because the premise is true. It's not true because the electronics has flaws basically embedded in its design, these tacit assumptions like you described, where if, you know, a cosmic ray hits it just right, it can change the entire way the microchip processes data. It's something you can't predict. It's something that's like out of the blue. It's something that actually most people, I mean, probably 99.9999% of everybody who designs anything, we don't consider that ever. You know, I mean, that's like, you know, that's a non-event, right? Because it's so rare. But it can't happen. Now just think, so this is where I get with humans and all this other stuff, right? Just think, if I premise my entire life on these systems operating completely infallibly, and then there's a fallible It's something that's not predicted, something that, wasn't expected, it's something that you can't sort of, plan for. Everything changes, everything changes, and this is what your stream kind of brought up to me, is that, our world is sort of going into this direction where we're going to be told, don't question anything. I don't care what side of the political spectrum you're on, right? Or anything, right? The basic gestalt, don't question. We know, don't question us. And the universe does not work that way. We need to question everything all the time. And we need to tolerate each other questioning. I don't know where we're going with all of this stuff. But it is a scary time. But anyway, your sermon was right on. Thank
I've been visiting the last couple of sessions because I've been wrestling with this problem with my health. It's a real kind of a weird disease that I don't know if you've heard of it, alpha gall. It's like you get it from a tick bite after Lyme disease. It's weird, and I don't want to get into all the complications of it, but it affects the kind of food that I eat. So people wonder why I don't eat some of the potluck food. It's because I am allergic to certain things that really make me sick, and I have to avoid them. But it's almost impossible because of the nature of the food I have to avoid it. To know what's in the food, and so it makes it a problem anyway. But I've been wrestling with this for a long time. It's kind of weird. I had the Lyme disease 5 years ago, and it incubates in your liver, and so I got liver problems. But outside of that, as long as I avoid the foods that I'm allergic to, I have pretty good health. So it's kind of weird, but I appreciate your understanding of it. Thank you.
Yeah, so we won't be offended.
No.
If you don't eat what we bring.
What do you avoid? What do you have to avoid?
So far, I've only, I haven't finished it. I'm still going to the doctor for it. It involves beef, lamb, and pork. The disease kind of progresses over the years. And they say if you get it more than once, so I know I've been limited by ticks more than once.
Yeah.
So, but if you get it several times, the disease gets worse. But it takes 5 years before I've had that. And I've been getting sick. It's a real nuisance because I can take a bite out of a hamburger and just, but I discovered if I take something that, like ginger, it prevents the nausea, and I'm all right, but I still can't eat the food because it has other things it does to the body, like the liver. I got a couple of weeks ago, I had a terrible rash just down my face, and I tried everything, antibiotics and everything to rid of it, it wouldn't go away. That's what made me, I used to go, I still go over my sister's house, and she said, maybe you're allergic to something. And so it worked out, and I said, I better think about that. And I just happen to have a new computer that has AI, so I asked it what it's been guiding me through it. But I haven't finished yet. I think, I hope that's the only three things that I have to do. But even that is enough for me. It's a lot of stuff, a lot of other problems. Pardon?
Thank you for coming.
Don't you? Yeah, if anybody's got any more questions.
Is there anything you found that doesn't bother you at all, an egg or something?
Actually, chicken is,
Good.
I can eat chicken. And then eat turkey, and any seafood, most seafood, except for I have God, which also my seafood. But chicken is about the safest thing I think.
So maybe something you can join us, just chicken.
Pardon?
Say you cook something for the dinner that was just plain chicken, you could,
Yeah,
without anything else.
yeah, there's no stuffing from the meat. Yeah,
Egg salad.
eggs are all right. It's a complicated chemistry system that goes into the reason for it. It took them a long time to figure it out. It's only recently that publicized.
Can we join in our closing hymn, number 115, God of Grace and God of Glory? May ours be a religion that, like sunshine, goes everywhere. Its temple, all space. Its shrine, the good heart. Its creed, all truth. Its ritual, works of love. Amen.